Hello, everybody. Rick Manning, Americans for Limited Government. We are one day out from Mugshot Day down in Atlanta. And, you know, one thing that stands out in the mugshots is that Donald Trump and the people closest to him show absolute defiance, no backing down, no guilt, shame, or anything else. Absolute defiance at this abuse of power. They thought they were going to use a mugshot to humiliate Donald Trump, and instead he's used a mugshot to tell the people a message. I'm going to show you this. This is all the mugshots, and it's kind of unfortunate. I'll try to make it get bigger. But these are the mugshots, and I picked it off of the Intelligencer, which is a left-wing publication. And you know they're obviously editorializing a different way, but just look at Mark Meadows, Donald Trump. You know, you can see Jenna Ellis, Rudy Giuliani leaning forward into it, determined. Yeah, a little bit pissed because this kind of abuse of power should not stand and cannot stand. Not cowering, not intimidated, standing into the wind and saying, "You will not prevail." That's what this MAGA mugshot is all about. Donald Trump used what they intended for evil, and he and his team turned it into something that sent a message of defiance, a message that says freedom will win. America is bigger than you, and we will not back down in our defense of First Amendment rights, of the right to counsel, and of the right to have and stand for free and fair elections in this country, no matter what some Soros prosecutor in Fulton County, Georgia, has to say. That's the story of these mugshots. That's what must scare the heck out of the left. They desperately wanted the mugshot so they could sit there and they could say, "Oh, look, we finally got Donald Trump." And what they got was a look that says, "You will not win." And I guess, you know, they can always look to the White House and have somebody looking and take great comfort that they are, in fact, that their side is in good hands. Such a powerful message through those mugshots. I wanted to show you what Rudy Giuliani said. It kind of got lost in the shuffle in the news. And Giuliani coming out of the courthouse after going through the mugshot and all that junk. And here, of course, is Rudy Giuliani. Let me just show you what he said. I think it's speaks for itself.
If they can do this to me, they can do this to you. Remember, 3 years ago, the FBI raided my apartment and my law office, and they 20 years of my life they investigated, and they wrote a letter to the grand jury that they couldn't find a single crime. So that should have pretty much cleared me. I don't know what you think, except for this ridiculous case in which an American citizen who I do as a lawyer, and 5 other lawyers are indicted. That should tell you right away that this is an assault on our Constitution. Fannie Willis will go down in American history as having conducted one of the worst attacks on the American Constitution ever when this case is dismissed. She has violated people's First Amendment right to advocate the government, to petition the government for grievances, like an election they believe was poorly conducted or falsely conducted. People have a right to believe that in America. Biden and the Biden state doesn't have a right to tell you what the truth is.
Mr. Mayor.
And I will tell you, if you need to know what this is all about, the FBI stole my iCloud account. And you know when they went and stole it? The day that I began representing Donald Trump 4 years ago.
There you go. There you go. That's Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani. So we just remember Rudy Giuliani made his bones as a U.S. attorney. He took down the mob in New York, the Genovese family. He took them down using the exact RICO statutes as a U.S. attorney that the Fulton County prosecutor is trying to use against Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani understands the power of the law. He understands the power of a prosecution. And he understands what is at stake in terms of this particular prosecution. Because, folks, if Rudy Giuliani can't represent the President of the United States in claims before courts, and indeed to petition the government, the U.S. government, and state governments, if he cannot represent the President of the United States to do that, then none of us can get representation to stand up against a government that's determined to impose its will. What he said at the very beginning has to be reiterated. It has to be just, you have to understand this. There you go. If they can, if Giuliani, one of the most famous lawyers in America, former mayor of New York, can be prosecuted by a political partisan in Fulton County, Georgia, for representing his client, for fighting for the truth get out on the elections so people can make a real decision by providing the evidence for state legislatures around the country. If he can be prosecuted for advocating for his client, who can you get to represent you in a court of law when you want to advocate? That's just flat out true. This prosecution of Rudy Giuliani is sending a message to every single lawyer in America that it's dangerous, that they have personal danger if they represent someone who is taking on the government, who's taking on the dominant narrative, who's taking on the World Health Organization. That's what the message is being sent. And that's why we have to win. And we have to take back this government. We're at a tipping point. Rudy Giuliani knows it, and we all know it. And that's why you see those defiant mugshots. I'm going to show you a couple of other things here that I found interesting. I was searching X for Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump tweeted something on what used to be Twitter, and it's it's the first time he's tweeted something on there in 2 years or so, 3 years, and it got 176 million views, and you sit there and you just go, wow, that's powerful. But beyond the speech that he gave to and conversation with Tucker Carlson, which topped over 200 million views. But I wanted to show you something that came across when I was looking for that. Pretty astonishing. You're going to see something here. The Trump motorcade is going through part of Atlanta that is that's less affluent. This isn't Buckhead. And so the motorcade's going through this. Watch this. What you see. It's a little surprising even to me.
talking about they got everybody.
How many of you had Trump motorcade leaving from indictment, leaving from getting a mugshot taken, greeted with crowds cheering in urban in Atlanta, poor neighborhood in Atlanta? Did you have that on your bingo card? I'll guarantee you that the left didn't have that on their bingo card. Here's what's true. It's for decades, people in the Black community have been complaining about a two-tier system of justice. They've been complaining that they don't get a fair shot in the courts. And they are sitting there and they're watching this and they're saying, it's now, the contagion is now spread. So a lot of people in the Black community are looking at this and saying, this is, this makes our point. And they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong. Not coincidentally, Donald Trump, and I opposed this. I thought it was a policy mistake. And I still believe it has negative ramifications. It's having negative ramifications. But Donald Trump pushed through changes to our federal law, which made it so people who had been in prison for a long time were given a pathway out, and passed a criminal justice reform law that a lot of the Black leadership supported. I thought it was a mistake from a criminal justice standpoint in a lot of different ways, but that's not the point here. The point is the guy they're prosecuting here actually stood up for their agenda and said, if there's, we've got to show some compassion in the system, and created a circumstance where a number of people were released. Some of those people have gone back and are back in jail because they did bad things. But bottom line is, Donald Trump's been an advocate for criminal justice reform. So he's not a guy who stood against criminal justice. Leaders pushing for criminal justice reform. So sometimes these guys who are saying we have to get Donald Trump, orange man bad, we got to get him no matter what they're doing is they are pushing their own base into Donald Trump's arms. That's what they're doing. It's stupid. But the white liberals who hate Donald Trump, love the establishment and hate Donald Trump, and the white so-called conservatives who hate Donald Trump and love the establishment, who come together and seek to stop Donald Trump at all costs, are effectively creating a black, white, Hispanic, populist surge in this country that is going to run them over, and rightfully so. And rightfully so. You can't, that's what we're watching. Yesterday I talked about the reaction to the song Rich Men North of Richmond, and to the Jason Aldean song Not in a Small Town, and to the Sound of Freedom, a movie that took the nation by storm and that nobody expected. There is a movement that's happening. It isn't something that Washington can pick up because it isn't happening in Washington, D.C. It isn't happening in our state capitals, at least not around the state capital. The elites who run our government, the elites who run our higher education systems, the elites who are CEOs of companies and go to the Ivy League schools, it's not happening in their neighborhoods. but it's happening everywhere else in America. When parents are saying that are saying, I'm scared to send my kids to school because of the transgender agenda when in California, well, in Montgomery County, Maryland, parents get told, you don't really have a say so. You can't opt out of this education system that, or classes, CRT or the sex ed classes, the transgender grooming classes. You can't have your 5-year-old opted out of that. When they're told that, what are they going to do? Well, some of them are going to sit back and stew. Some are going to say, well, I'm taking my kid out of the schools. But most people are going to say, they really hate me. They're attacking me. They put the dog in the lap of the average American. And the average American is going to fight back. Is going to push back. The average American is going to line the road.
Everybody. Look at I'm talking about they got everybody. Look at that fucked up. Donald Trump.
Last time I saw something like that, was when the Johnny Depp trial occurred here in DC, and the Johnny Depp trial, or here in Fairfax, and it was just down the street from our office. And every day during the, after the court let out, there were people lined up outside of our office waiting to wave at Johnny Depp. And I finally sent David Potter and our team out to get some video of it. But that's what was happening with Johnny Depp in front of our office. That's what, when Donald Trump gets indicted in Miami, he goes to a Cuban restaurant in Miami. He's greeted by all these people saying, holding him up, lifting him up, praying for him. He drives down the streets of urban Atlanta, and this is just kind of a random video. He drives down the streets in urban Atlanta, in a poor part of town, and you've got people lining the streets cheering. Folks, something's happening here. And I'm just going to go to Buffalo Springfield song called For What It's Worth. Lyrics. There's something happening here. What it is, ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop. Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. There's battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds, getting so much resistance from behind. It's time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everyone look what's going down. What a field day for the heat of 1,000 people in the street, singing songs and carrying signs, mostly say, hooray for our side. It's paranoia strikes deep. Into your life it will creep. It starts when you're always afraid. Step out of line, the men come and take you away. That was a song from the 1960s, folks. That's not a song, but how real does that feel now? Something's happening here. And Washington, D.C. doesn't have a freaking clue. Because it's happening out there. And you can feel it. I can see it. There's a people. It's not really a revolution. It's a massive wave. It's a tsunami of people finding ways, subversive ways, to tell the establishment to pound sand. You see it within the culture, where people are songs that never would have gone to number one, go to #1 on the charts, where movies that nobody's ever heard of suddenly jump and take down Mission Impossible and take down the Harrison Ford movie. Big budget movies, lots of promotion, and yet little movies with a message destroy them at the box office. Something's happening here. If you want to join us in trying to help make certain that what's happening is good for America and restores constitutional values, I'd encourage you to subscribe to Americans for Limited Government. I'd encourage you to become part of the team, part of the solution. You can do that simply, lots of different ways to help. One of the best ways is to go to getliberty.org and sign the Impeach Biden petition, sign the We Will Not Comply petition. There's a letter, those send emails to elected officials, and we don't comply. It's local, state, and federal officials. And it's about the, obviously, return of the mandates. We have to get the people who are the decision makers to understand that they don't want to be on the wrong side of history on this. They don't want to be the oppressors. They want to be on the side of Americans. It's time for them to stand up. It doesn't matter what political party they have behind their name. Anybody who has a congressional pin or is an elected official has sworn an oath to defend the Constitution. And it's up to us to hold them accountable to that oath. That's all I've got. I'm going to take a look at the chat and see where we are. I'll answer a couple questions that we got. Trump should get, here we go. Betsy, I'll lead off with you, Betsy. Trump should get so many votes that Democrats can't cheat that much. Betsy, that's what we have to do. We have to dominate the left so completely, so totally. We have to win primaries so the people who get elected in Congress don't believe that their job is to stop Trump for 4 years, no matter which party they're in. We have to, so there's a big job ahead of us. But yes, we have to make sure that Donald Trump gets so many votes that that the Democrats cannot make it up through cheating. I always figured you had to beat him by about 3%. I was wrong. We had to beat him by 5% last time. So let's beat him by 10 this time and make it so they cannot prevail. Let's see here. Valerie, we are the people who are the front lines of the Constitution. 100% correct. 100%. And the Constitution, let's just pull up the Constitution here just for a second, just for fun. Constitution of the United States. Okay. I'm going to just remind people of the Constitution of the United States and what it says. And I'll go and go behind me. I'll take down a picture of my wife. I'll take down a picture of my cat. And I'll show you that behind me I have these words on purpose as a reminder every day of who our government is supposed to represent. And this is, let's see if I can get the Constitution to actually come up. There. And that way we can actually show it. How about that for an idea? Okay, there you go. I finally got it. Let's see if I can get it to, there we go. That's exactly what I didn't want to have happen. Okay, so anyway, we the people's at the top of the Constitution. See what happens when you try to do live is always dangerous. You don't want to do live, especially me. You get into some dangerous territory. But yeah, it says we the people of the United States. And that's the top of the Constitution. That's what sits behind my desk. And this is the armor of God sitting right next to it, because bearing the armor of God allows us to withstand the arrows from the enemy who seek to undermine the foundations of this country. So that's kind of a little insight into what's behind me. Let's see what we have. Come on, man. Show what I got. Even if they take him off the ballot, write him in. Paula, one of the things, they're not going to be able to take him off the ballot. That's they're going to try. There's no doubt they're going to try. We'll have a fight over it. But they can convict him of every count that he's been charged with. And there's not a single one of those counts that makes him ineligible to be president of the United States. Not one. So given that, it doesn't, will we have to fight on it? Yeah, we'll have to fight on it. But I'm going to tell you, just like I said yesterday when I was reviewing the debate, any Republican who sits there and tries to make a case to the contrary, who's a political official, will not politically survive it. They all know it. But that's why we're doing what we're doing with the email campaigns. We are trying to make it clear to the Republicans as well as the Democrats, but the Republicans in particular, that there is no middle ground here. You're either standing for freedom, you're either standing for truth and justice, and against a weaponized politically weaponized Department of Justice. You're either standing for truth or you're not. And there's no middle ground. There's no place to stand. There's no place to lick your finger and stick it in the air and try to figure out which way the winds are blowing. You're either on the side of truth or you're not. And once again, I'd encourage people to go back to the debate last night or 2 nights ago and look at the response when asked, when the 8 people running for president who were on stage were asked to raise their hand if they'd vote for Donald Trump if he was convicted of any crime. And just watch the response. Watch the response of Ron DeSantis. Watch the response of Mike Pence. Watch the response of Chris Christie and of Asa Hutchinson. Watch their response. Watch the response of Vivek, whatever his name is. Can't remember. I can't do the last name right now. But watch his response. His response was immediately, "I'm voting for Donald Trump." If he's subjected to that, he didn't raise his hand like this. He raised his hand high in the air, proudly. I want somebody who's going to fight for freedom. Somebody who understands that when you have a weaponized justice system, because they've managed to manipulate the system such that they get a jury pool in Washington, D.C. that will indict anybody on anything and will convict anybody on anything if they're a Republican, particularly if they're Donald Trump. If you get that, you manage to manipulate the system to be able to get trials in D.C. where you can't lose. The hometown advantage is so strong that you cannot lose, and where the judges will disallow evidence and throw out evidence that you are offering that's exculpatory, won't allow you to actually provide a defense. That's what's happening in D.C. right now on J6 trials. It's what's happening on trials related to this case against Trump. That's where we're sitting. If those people who are the politicians who are supposedly paying attention can't figure out what's going on, then they don't deserve to be president. And it was quite honestly disheartening to see the response of half of the people who were up there on that debate stage. It's ironically, the politicians, at least 4 of them, are the ones who didn't get it. That this wasn't a stick your finger up in the air and figure out which way the wind's blowing issue. This was a basic core issue. I hate to harp on this again, but after I spent some time on it yesterday, but my gosh, what the heck? It just drove me nuts. Hey, Dottie, hope all's well. By the way, I want to shout out, Dottie's my aunt, and her husband, Mark, my uncle, put up a meme the other day, 2 days ago, said, do not comply onto Facebook. I saw it, and that's what prompted me to go and push out a take action, that do not comply, take action, that we are now putting money behind, and beyond just reaching our list, we're advertising it to others who are like-minded to try to create a groundswell. But that was the idea actually came from seeing what my Uncle Mark put up on his Facebook page. So Dottie, please tell Mark about that. You guys, believe it or not, I do look at this stuff. So anyway, thanks, Dot. Appreciate it. Let's see here. Yeah, Paula, the Ramaswamy, they will do it that time. Yeah, he said he was, I'm kind of immune to that argument. Everybody has their biases. Everybody has to assume because a politician takes money from contributors doesn't mean that they are bought and paid for. What it means is, they take money from contributors because they have to be able to afford to run a race. That's just the reality. But there's an old saying in politics, and it really goes kind of askew for where I'm going, but it's funny. And that old saying is, politicians don't stay bought because you're really only renting them. And that's really pretty true. But secondly, if people out there gave money to Americans for limited government and then came to me and said, well, Rick, I gave you money and now I want you to go off and do something that doesn't fit with what we're supposed to be doing and that I didn't agree with, and that I went to my board and my board didn't agree with, I would go and I'd say, well, it's interesting, but I'm not doing that. And if they said, well, then I want my money back, then I'd say, sure, here's your money back. Assuming I hadn't spent it. You can't wait a long time. There's a short time period. But you support people because you believe they're going to reflect your values. And if they don't, find somebody else to support. I was an area lobbyist for 9 years, and you'd always have guys and women who sometimes they were supporters and then they disappoint you. Abnormal is somewhat normal. I can name names of some people who fit that category. But that's that's part of the thing. Sometimes the politics flows the other way, and and the reality was that with the NRA world was that, very few people got elected because their number one or number two issue was, I'm going to defend the Second Amendment. Usually they were, it was about taxes or something else. And defending the Second Amendment was, oh yeah, I believe in the Second Amendment, without thinking about it too much. And when it gets hard, some of those people didn't think about it too much. Suddenly you're getting, yelled at by other contributors and other people and who they listen to. And it's a fight. You have to fight like crazy to keep them on track. Hard job, by the way. Super fun job, but a hard job. And but the fact is, these guys are, you just have to constantly be on them. And that's why one of the things I've advocated people doing, if it's stand with Trump, if it's impeach Biden, if it's no mandates, whatever the issue is, okay, contact your local congressional office. Contact your local congressional office and your local Senate offices. Schedule a time to come by. can be for 5 minutes, and just express in person to somebody in that office what you think. You know, they need to hear that we're tired of talk about the Biden impeachment. Either move the ball and get something done, or shut up. They need to hear that. I sent a note to a congressman who's a friend of mine telling him that. They need to hear from you. It's we the people. And that's something that you can do now. Congress, most members of Congress are not leaders. They're followers. The question is, who are they going to follow? And in the Constitution, they're supposed to, if you get involved and enough people get involved, this is who they're going to follow. Right here, we the people. I wish I could do my hand the right way. There we go. But if they don't hear from you, if you're not respectfully in their face, they won't know. They won't know. And when they get back here, they're inundated with people telling them what they think. And unfortunately, those people are outside of what's actually happening in the country, because they're in this bubble. And they don't realize that whether they're a Republican or a Democrat, the anger focused on Washington, D.C. is not a partisan anger. It's a bipartisan anger that the people have been forgotten. The people are being let down. Nobody's standing and fighting for the people. And every time they indict Donald Trump on something, those people come to realize that Donald Trump's the one guy they fear. That's what's happening in America. Americans are speaking. They're speaking through the songs they're choosing to download. They're speaking through the movies they're choosing to see. They're speaking through a lot of different, not so subtle clues that something's happening here. And if the politicians in Washington, D.C. don't figure it out, there are going to be times there'll be a change in mixing my folk songs from the 60s, but it's I went with Dylan there at the end. So for all those who don't like Dylan, sorry. Anyway, with that, we'll let it go. And Dot, I haven't forgotten all the Beatles posters you used to have on your walls when you were a kid. With that, we'll let it go and take care. We'll see you on Monday. Appreciate you all for coming out, and please share this so others can find out what's going on in this country and can